Am I the jerk for planning a game night only for the couples in my friend group? I'm a 25-year-old male. My friend group consists of individuals all in our early or mid-20s. We engage in typical activities such as dinners, cocktail bars, hiking, and game nights. Often, just the guys will hang out or just the girls, but very often the whole group gets together. We are all couples, all long-term and living together except for Riley, who is a 23-year-old female and single. I have no issue with her personally. She is funny and pleasant during group hangouts. Riley has been single for a while, lives alone, and says she feels no urge to get into a relationship. A few people in the group have tried to introduce her to others a few times, but she ended up not being interested in any of them. What bothers me is when the whole group of couples is together, having just one single person totally throws off the dynamic. It makes the vibe awkward because everyone else has their partner with them, and Riley is just there alone. It also makes our group an odd number, which throws off restaurant seating and sways game nights. In restaurants, it's especially weird because we have to explain how we're splitting checks as couples, and then just Riley by herself. Sometimes, when one of the guys is sitting on either side of Riley, a waiter will assume he's her boyfriend by the seating pattern. This messes up the checks and creates an awkward situation. My girlfriend and I are planning to host a game night next weekend, and I suggested that we only invite the couples to this one. She asked what I meant, and I basically said only the people in our friend group who are couples so it can be a couples game night. My girlfriend said that would only be acceptable if our friend group was a solid mix of couples versus single people, but otherwise is literally just excluding Riley, who everyone likes. I said that's what I wanted as the vibe was weird with just one single person, and I want to do more things with just the couples in our friend group so it's less awkward. My girlfriend got super pissed and snapped at me that nobody else thinks it's awkward and we're not leaving Riley out just because she's not in a relationship. It turned into an argument between my girlfriend and me, and she told me that I could just not come if I had such a problem with her being there. I talked to some of the guys in our group about it, expecting them to agree with me, but they all said they have no problem with her coming. One of them even said he and his girlfriend, Riley's best friend, sometimes go out to dinner with Riley, and it's not weird at all. My girlfriend is pissed at me, and now the other guys are acting like I have a problem. Am I the asshole for just not wanting a constant third wheel in my friend group? You bear some fault. Your girlfriend is right. Making it a couple's night is deliberately excluding just one person, and that's really rude. The only person who seems to feel awkward about it is you. Odd-numbered groups can still have a great time, and splitting a bill with a single person isn't any harder than with a couple. Am I the jerk for nicknaming the family dog? Back in May, my little sister turned 10 years old, and she got a Chihuahua for her birthday. This was a very big deal, and she promised she would do everything for it. As we all expected, she did not. Life goes on, and the puppy named Boba after the T has become more of a family dog. I live next door. 3 years ago, my childhood dog, our family dog, passed away. We had many nicknames for her such as Bear, Seal, Baby Dog, Cecil, Honey Bear, and Rosie Bear. The list is never ending, but this was a family thing. We got Lulu in 2022. She is a border collie mix and a good girl. She also gets random funny nicknames. I call her Louie and Lubear. My mom calls her Potansky, which evolved from Louis Vuitton. Regardless, as we can see, this has never been an issue. Baba just does not have a ring to it for me. It is my first time having love for a male dog. My male cat's name is Shade. He permanently goes by the Shane because it is hilarious. I have been calling him Bobby, Bob, Little Bob, or the Bobster. My family will correct me to say Bobster, Bobby, Boab, Boabs, or Little Boabs. I seriously think this sounds like boobs. I have not said this because I do not want to be rude. Regardless, I think Bob is hilarious. He is tiny and a tiny man. If someone is around, I will use his given name, or if it is training, on a walk, etc. I keep getting told not to say Bobby at all. Last night he came up to me during a movie, and I greeted him. I was once again told off by my mom, which I had assumed was a joke until now. I said, "You have the world's weirdest names for Lulu. You call her Petronks and Tavaski. I cannot call him Bob?" She snapped back. "Well, he isn't your dog, is he? So get over it and call him by his name." This morning, I went back over to ask about it because it felt very uncomfortable. I was told I was being rude in their house by disrespecting their boundaries. I told them I didn't realize they were that serious. I am not trying to rename their dog whatsoever, just entertaining myself quietly with how he's just a little guy. They told me Boabs is his nickname and I have to use it. I ended up laughing at them and having to leave while being told I am immature and rude. So am I the asshole? Everyone seems to be overreacting here. Nicknames just happen naturally, and sometimes they can be a bit silly or annoying but still harmless. It's hard to see why this situation is worth getting worked up over. Maybe just let it go and have a laugh about it instead. Am I the jerk for having a beef with my wife and mother-in-law? We just had a baby, and my mother-in-law has been helping when we are really exhausted. My mother-in-law is extremely religious, Christian, and my wife and I are not. Every time my mother-in-law would bring up religion, we would brush it off and move on. This was until we asked her to watch the baby in the morning so we could sleep a little. She decided to clean and came across my wife's books about different faiths and religions. I woke up before my wife, and my mother-in-law brought the books to me saying, These are evil and not good. This isn't good for the baby. You need to throw them away because they weren't Christian. I told her that she shouldn't judge others based on religion, and just because she believes something doesn't mean she can be disrespectful to others who believe differently. My mother-in-law then said that if we aren't Christian, she doesn't want to be part of our lives, so I told her she can leave. We didn't speak for a few weeks until we decided to attempt to make amends because I felt the situation was unnecessary. My mother-in-law came over, and we all tried to talk. My mother-in-law, my wife, and myself. Things didn't go the way I hoped, as my mother-in-law isn't receptive to listening or just agreeing that we can believe different things and still be respectful. She believes that she is right regardless of how we feel. My mother-in-law also went on the defensive and said some pretty hurtful things to both me and my wife. Regardless, I decided we would just let it go, and my wife was on the same page at the time. My mother-in-law asked to visit the baby on 2 different occasions, and both times she completely ignored my wife when she would say hi or say anything to her. I obviously felt wrong about it, so my wife and I talked about it. My wife feels that my mother-in-law is being disrespectful and treating her poorly. She believes that my mother-in-law shouldn't be coming around just to see the baby, and that my mother-in-law should, at the bare minimum, be respectful to her. A week goes by. Cutting to now, I asked my mother-in-law if she wanted to grab lunch, and I asked my wife if I should take our baby or not. My wife said she would stay home with the baby, and that she's not super comfortable with my mother-in-law being around the baby at the moment. I feel like my mother-in-law has a right to see our baby, and our baby shouldn't be forced not to see my mother-in-law just because of this. Although I do believe my mother-in-law owes my wife an apology, I don't know if she will. Is it wrong if I still let my mother-in-law see the baby even if she isn't willing to apologize? Am I the asshole? Anyone who cannot respect you or your wife should not have access to your child. Your mom is abusing and disrespecting your wife, and enabling her behavior is not okay. You and your wife are supposed to be a team. If she gets disrespected, so do you. Protect your child by setting firm boundaries and showing your mother the consequences of her actions. Am I the jerk for excluding a friend's significant other from our hangouts because they broke up with them? For background information, the former friend group consisted of 5 people, 2 men and 3 women. We got along fairly well until the end of last year when Jason, a 20-year-old man, and Lily, a 22-year-old woman, started dating about 3 months into the friendship. The signs were there, so it wasn't all that unexpected. Lily was the same nationality as all of Jason's previous partners, and she stayed behind to help him clean, as his place was the usual hangout spot. We congratulated them, and Jason expressed that he didn't want to ruin our friendship by dating within the friend group. Cool, right? Well, I, a 20-year-old woman, noticed very quickly that Jason was becoming less active in the chat, not reading messages for days, sometimes weeks on end. The chat gradually died, with Andrew, a 23-year-old man, creating a separate chat room for the remaining 3 after being frustrated by Jason's disregard. The 3 women's chat consisting of myself, Lily, and Tiana, a 20-year-old woman, died off as well. A few months passed without news from Jason. Fast forward to 2 months ago. Jason contacted me and Tiana in a separate group chat, explaining that his ghosting session lasting for months was because he felt uncomfortable interacting with Andrew. He would not elaborate on what was wrong, claiming that he would talk with Andrew when the time was right. Apparently, his reasoning for ghosting myself and Tiana as part of the package was so that he wasn't forcing us to pick sides. We expressed our disappointment with his behavior and haven't interacted with him since. Andrew expressed confusion and guilt for dragging us into this situation. Apparently, the uncomfortable situation happened in January, and Andrew still doesn't know what he did wrong. Jason described his dynamic with Andrew as toxic in a separate series of messages to him, and I can't see how his behavior is any different. Meanwhile, Lily has been trying to reconcile with the 3 of us, having separate sessions to explain her side of the story. She confessed about feeling stuck in the middle and how she feels sad about the friendship going awry. She has contacted myself and Tiana so far, but hasn't interacted much with Tiana afterward. Andrew hasn't informed me of any contact from her yet. I understand but feel frustrated that she witnessed this debacle from the side up until now, afraid of ruining the comfortable dynamic she built with her boyfriend by calling out his avoidant behavior. Here is the dilemma. The 3 remaining members of the friend group recently got together to celebrate Tiana's birthday, and Lily seems to be upset that she wasn't included. I think there is still tension between Andrew and Lily, given that she is Jason's girlfriend, and believe it would have been very uncomfortable to have her with us. Am I the antagonist here for not informing her beforehand? Sorry if this seems choppy. English is not my first language. You are not the one to blame. She basically ghosted you all for 2 whole months, and now, of course, there are going to be consequences. And Jason talking about not wanting you and Tiana in the crossfire seems so redundant, especially since that's exactly what happened. It's really confusing why Lily cut off contact with you 2 girls if you weren't involved. Am I the jerk for not forgiving my father? Am I the jerk for not wanting to forgive my father? I, a non-binary 18-year-old, don't want to forgive my father, a man over the age of 40. My father is African, and my mother is German. My mother already had a child before me. my brother's father had died. After some other relationships, my mother got together with my father. They never married, and my father lied about there being a war in his country. My father cheated on my mother when I was 2 years old with a woman who had the same name as my second name. I'm sure he cheated multiple times. That's just the only instance I know of. The relationship between my parents was always complicated. They always argued, and there was always a problem with my father not wanting to pay for things. I don't remember much of my childhood, but it wasn't really bad, just filled with a lot of arguing. At some point, my parents had a bigger argument, and my mother made my father sleep on the couch for a few days. Around that time, he went to Africa alone. 2 years later, when they finally broke up, they discussed child support. My father revealed that he had another child in Africa in hopes of having to pay less. When I found out, I cried and was mad. He told me, "You should be happy. I wanted another child." At that moment, it was over for me. Then he moved out. At the start, he came every weekend for what I like to call free food, free Wi-Fi, and free sex because my mother would provide. I was often forced to do things with my father, like stay over at his place and go somewhere with him to his friend's place. Every single time was horrible. I remember sitting at some guy's place I didn't know for 6 hours, staring into my phone while my father conversed in a language I couldn't understand. I tearfully called my mom and asked her to pick me up, and she did. After that, I started to completely refuse him. When he came on the weekends, he'd demand respect from me. I started refusing to open the door for him and ignored him completely, not leaving my room when he was there. The most horrible part for me was when my mother would make food or clean only because he was there. At least that's what it felt like. Just recently, I had an argument with my father. We yelled at each other. I told him to leave my room. He said I had to respect him. I said I don't have to do anything except die. He replied, "Then die." So, am I the asshole for not wanting to forgive my father? You did the right thing. At this point in life, it's important to make your own decisions, and if cutting ties with your father brings you peace, then go for it. He hasn't respected you, so there's no obligation to respect him. If he tries to contact you, make it clear that you want nothing more from him and that he should leave you alone. Am I the jerk for only doing activities as a family? I am a 41-year-old man, and my wife Lily is a 41-year-old woman. I have a daughter from my previous marriage, Josie, who is 13 years old, and my wife has 3 kids. Riley, who is an 8-year-old girl, Daniel, who is a 6-year-old boy, and Jake, who is a 4-year-old boy. We married about a year ago, and since then, I've made huge efforts to include my stepchildren in everything, and to integrate us into our own family. Josie's mother is very active in her life, but Lily's ex-husband only has visitation rights and even then does not see them that often, so her kids spend most of their time here. Thus, I have been including them in many activities since they need a better father figure in their life. Before Lily and I got married, I spent a lot of one-on-one time with Josie. We would do many father-daughter activities together, but once Lily and I got married, I decided to integrate my stepchildren into these activities so they would not be deprived of any precious father-child time. I either take all the kids somewhere, or I do a day with just the girls and a separate day with just the boys. My daughter never said anything, but it seemed like she was not entirely happy with this arrangement, which I chalked up to her just not being used to sharing her dad with new children. Josie came to me and asked if we could have our own father-daughter time like we used to. I said no because it is not fair to exclude her step-siblings and that they are just as much family as she is. I mentioned how it would seem like I favored her for being biologically mine if I went out with just her. She is quieter around me and tries to stay to herself when we do things now. I guess Riley found out, and she said that she would understand if I spent my own time with Josie, which makes me feel bad since she is probably just saying that because she feels obligated to for Josie's sake. Lily is on my side, but my ex-wife says I am a jerk and being obtuse. Now I am worried I might be wrong. Am I the asshole? In a family with biological children, it's quite normal for a parent to spend time with all the kids together, but also to find opportunities to spend time with each kid individually. This approach works well in blended families too. Spending time with Josie doesn't mean choosing her over the stepchildren or showing favoritism. It's really important to engage with each child on their level and share in their unique interests. Remember, having individual relationships with each child isn't about replacing anyone, but valuing them all as unique individuals. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.